Thank you so much, everyone. We're here to discuss the topic near and dear to my heart, which is media and how to make money from it and where the talent comes from. I'm going to start by showing my age quickly and say when I was growing up, a couple of my sort of idols were Eddie Murphy and Eddie Vedder. I hope a lot of you at least know who those people are. But both of them is one's an actor who came out of a Hollywood studio and the other came out of like the music industry, both a lot of gatekeepers, and they were made by this whole ecosystem of people. Today I learned my daughter's favorite sort of celebrity is this guy named Mark Grover, or Rober something, who makes Crunch Lab stuff. And I've learned that's common, that if you've got a kid, their heroes probably has emerged on social media. And I've got two people here who are building the ecosystems that help these people emerge. So really quickly, Georgie, can you tell us quickly what you do?
First of all, I want to say trust the media people to wear black to the conference. We're very much in style and in keeping. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of FlightStory. Most of you or some of you may have heard of Stephen Bartlett and the Diary of a CEO. We are scaling creator-led media brands, and our thesis is the next billion-dollar media companies will come from single human IP. I think Mr. Beast is very close to that, and we believe that many, many others will be built across the decades ahead. And to give you an example of the size of the market, the creator economy is slated to be valued at $1 trillion by 2032 and to take over the whole of legacy media.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Warner Bailey, founder of Assistants versus Agents, different types of agents that we've been talking about, Hollywood agents. Spent a decade in media, Endeavor, Live Nation. But I'd started a Instagram account about a decade ago that has now grown into a media business. We have a job board educational ecosystem. We help people break into Hollywood, into entertainment broadly. And once they're there, help them upskill. We also have additional tech products that we've layered on and built out after growing the distribution channels and the trust, which we'll talk about for the past number of years.
Yeah, and one thing that really strikes me too, because I think we're all familiar with the idea of influencers, and it seemed like the evolution, we knew the old power brokers were going away, and there's these people emerging on social media. Influencers who are just trying to figure out what to do. You just kind of perform a lot and hope some money comes in somehow through sponsorship. But you've built sort of sophisticated ecosystems to help these people get paid. So how exactly are you doing it, and where does the money come from?
I think it's interesting that that sort of evolution of influencer to empire builder is very much where we find ourselves today. And I think influencers quickly understood that they could sell their audiences to brands and advertisers. In exchange for that, they could take brand deals and dollars. Then they got smart enough to realize they could take upside in those brand deals. So if they were selling product, they could take an upside in the revenue. Then they realized they could take some upside in the equity of those companies. And then they realized they could build the companies themselves. So we really are about building the operating system and the infrastructure around these creators. It's very, very fragmented at the moment. There's a lot of people trying to make a lot of money out of creators. And we believe that they should own and scale their personal IP. So we're helping them do that and deliver that at scale. To give you some size and scale of Stephen and the Diary of a CEO, he does 100 million views and listens every single month. So he has the economics and reach to kind of rival legacy media now. So we're very much in the game of building the operating system around these creators.
Yeah, we're not quite at 100 million views. We had 40 this month,
Well
but
done, it's amazing.
we see it as a multifaceted revenue stream. Before it was relying a lot on brand partners. I'll never accept the term or title of influencer creator. I actually built it anonymously behind for about 5 of those years. But we've done now partnerships with Amazon, Apple, Hulu, Netflix, down to more B2B partnerships through our newsletter platform. We did 20 events last year, ranging from curated 40-person dinners up to 1,000-person speaker panels, and geared towards the next generation. So, yeah, and then back to the media product. We've looked at probably 80% of our business traditionally has been through brand partnerships, and we flipped it on its head by investing a lot within our owned IP, and that's how we're going to scale this next chapter. We have a live show now, and looking more into the segmentation of those shows and building those out into a couple different verticals, as well as the tech product, which will be B2B. We wrapped our second fundraise for, which exists under the AVA umbrella and connected to it.
Yeah, it's just got to ask sort of a harder question here. I think historically, talent organizers, there's been a problem of exploitation, music industry especially, but also in Hollywood too, Harvey Weinstein and all things like that. And I'm just curious, if there's the new power brokers, is it better out there? Because then I remember talking to people in the music industry, it's like, well, at least we gave them something. We gave them a car and a record deal, and they had something. And then with the kind of distribution on YouTube, it seems like the big platforms took it all. Under the new system, make a case that it's fairer now and that it's easier to get paid.
It depends. I think it. I mean, my whole thesis for myself is I want to leave media better than I found it, and I found it in quite a state when I started almost 30 years ago now. So I think it is better. I think a lot of creators and a lot of artists have become very smart about IP and ownership. I also think that audience is the new distribution. We talk about distribution being robotics, we talk about it being trucks and logistics, but audience is now distribution. So they have so much leverage, they have so much opportunity to build brand, to build companies. So I think the exploitation is actually almost impossible now because these creators have got so smart about ownership and IP, and brands need them so much more, and so do the companies that make a lot of money from them. So I think the scales of power have tipped slightly.
Yeah, and I'd go and completely agree with that. We had launched the social account, kind of poking fun at the realization of the realities of working in Hollywood. Lloyd from Entourage being kind of the gold standard there, and we grew from there, and found the shortcomings of the industry and then built around it. So the job board had 500,000 within the first 4 months. We're growing that out and not only identifying where the shortcomings are, but then building access to it. So I think in an industry where it's more fractured and fragmented than it's ever been, there's consolidation at the top. All of the traditional media is focused on Hollywood is dying, entertainment's done. We're finding areas to where that presents a lot more opportunity for young companies. We now employ 10 to 12. We'll double that this year. And many others like Georgie and many of them that they bet on are the new version of what our industry is that I think deal with people and treat people, I think, in a different way. But it can't ever leave, in certain worlds. But I think it's becoming the norm that it's a more welcoming place to work in, certainly.
But again, where does the money come from too? Because historically, it's been royalties, from a contract, or it's been merch. Is it still a variation of that, or where does the cash come from?
And we take 50% of our revenue from brand deals. It's still a key component of our business, and we're very proud of the brand partners that we work with. And then we think about a very diversified business model beyond that. So we're talking about subscription, equity partnerships. We're talking about events. We're talking about CPG, starting for people to invest into products and companies that they want to build around the deep understanding of the audience's emotional and functional needs that they serve. So the revenue is much more diversified than ever, which is why I think these influencers, as they were beginning to be called, are now kind of these creator entrepreneurs. And I guess the unfair advantage that they have is because they're truly focused on providing value for the audience. They uniquely understand them in a way potentially the brands actually don't yet. So they can build product, they can build subscription, they can build ecosystems that really serve what these audiences want and are looking to these creators to provide them. So it's so much more diversified than it was before. I've been in businesses where the ad revenues were sort of 90% of your portfolio, and then you had 2 or 3 advertisers who were basically supporting that entire system, and if you lost them, you lost everything. So it's a much, much changed ecosystem now.
Warner,
Yeah,
can you point to sort of an unexpected new source of revenue if there is one?
yeah. I mean, we built a rage room for Hollywood assistants with Disney and a movie theater. That was pretty unexpected. But for us, when people look at social or media platforms, they don't expect B2B verticalized admin automation tech spinning out of that. And so I spent some time at 2 tech companies prior, and we're raising now our second fundraising, going to market for a tech platform. The easiest example would be Harvey and Entertainment, what they've done. We've earned the trust of the industry for 8 years and the relationships. Now we're co-building with them. So I would say that a lot of our future revenue will come from B2B partnerships and scaling within that in a tech play. Yeah, I mean, we're not relying on merch, which I think is a tough industry to be in. We're relying on products. The job board is a big example of that, and there's a lot of revenue generating from that and the data behind it.
Yeah, at the outset, you both cited 100 million views, 40 million views, and one thing I sort of have a question about that is can those sometimes be empty calories? Because I could probably get, I don't know, maybe I get 1 million views if I took my clothes off and dumped this glass of water on my head or something like that. But someone's got a shtick like that. But is a page is a view the same? And is that like a reliable metric? And then from the commercial point of view too, they are all views created alike, and how do we assess these metrics?
It's a great question. We obsess about CPM in our business to making sure that we're providing the highest value view possible, and not all views are created equal. That is true. I think what a lot of creators have become very cognizant of is they rent their audiences from these platforms. They don't technically own them. So we've become completely obsessed with owning the audience, owning the first party data, deeply understanding the use cases for that data, and using agentic to do so, to how we better serve the audiences with content, events, product, everything that we can do in service of them. So no, not every view is equal, and not every platform is equal either. There are a lot of platforms that really service the creator economy very well, YouTube being one of them, but the algorithm is changing all the time. We're in an attention economy, then we're in an interest economy. So we think about this a lot in our business, is that these rented audiences, in a year's time, we saw it with TikTok, it disappeared, and everybody had a little bit of a meltdown about what that meant, and they suddenly realized it was really important to not just own your IP, but also own your audience.
Yeah, I mean, and I care so little about the empty vanity metrics that many have chased traditionally in our industry. We care about how deep can we go and engaged community that we have built. For a long time, distribution was the moat, and now trust is the moat, and we are doubling down and tripling down on that ideology versus posting something like please don't do that. I think it would actually maybe, but it would garner us views, and potentially if we were in a brand partner, it would the long tail of that could be interesting from an economic standpoint. But if you're building durable businesses, we're focused so much on IP and what we can control versus social media, which is no longer social. It's a parasocial when you're posting. You're also, from a consumer standpoint, feels like you're pulling a roulette wheel to see what you're going to be served from a social media standpoint. So how can you move outside of that? And I care more about having 40 people in a room for a brand dinner than hitting 20 million on a Instagram reel or whatever people are chasing from a vanity standpoint.
And can we get a little more specific too? Because I think we all love the idea of like a deep audience relationship and kind of knowing your audience. And it sounds great in theory, but the specifics, especially with changing technology, what is the kind of point of touch or contact? I think unfortunately we've had a lot of luck with newsletters, emails, or sort of comment boards were a thing for a while. Where specifically, if is sort of the up and coming people connecting their audience? How do they talk to them
We
specifically?
really look for the signals of community, which is about depth of audience. I think we all know that the comments are now the content. I don't know about you, but every time I go on any social media platform, I'm actually more interested in the comments on a post than I am on the post itself. And I think that is a signal of community and engagement. It's a conversation happening around the post, not necessarily the post itself. So when I kind of think about the depth of that relationship, absolutely, it can come in email, it can come in in-person events. We're very, very bullish about that. That sort of almost responsibility that these huge digital creators have to bring their audience back into the real world. We've created these parasocial relationships. Quite often, these audiences are pretty much obsessed with this creator's first principles, and if you can bring those first principles into a room and add value in person, that to us is the gold standard. But we've built tools and technology all the time that help us kind of kill the guesswork. So to give you an example, we have a technology called Guest Radar that predicts the performance of a guest before they come on the show. So we can actually understand how well a guest is going to perform. We've built a tool called Creator Insights as well, which is really helping us understand the audience behaviors and what different types of audiences want from the content, and it's helping us inform what we make. So we're really, really obsessed with this part of our business.
Yeah, you talked about IRL. We're 100% bought in on IRL. And two other examples: survey data. Someone had talked about it yesterday, but we're now brought on to partner to garner real true survey data from the next gen. We can spin up 10,000 responses in a day through our audience. That's really valuable for what we build, what others build, and what we co-build. And then live. We launched a live show 2 months ago. I host. I have long lived. I think as we talked about behind the camera, and people trust brands with a face, and I realized that. And so I've been interviewing about 200 execs over the past 3 years, and we launched a live show called AVA Live. So I'll interview the head of Threads this Thursday and head of digital at WME, the Pluribus producers, and many others throughout who will come on the show, give insights. We'll then bake that down, and I think the clipping economy, which hopefully we don't get into, is a dirty area now, but it'll allow us to generate a lot of content to disperse through our own distribution channels, which include the newsletter. That has been growing, and newsletters, which we're launching. So live has been a big focus for us from a virtual standpoint.
Yeah, interesting. I've certainly got more questions, but I'd like to ask the audience. Does anyone like to put something to Warner and Georgie? Let's go, sir, right here in the front, and then to the person in the red dress behind.
Matt Marr, M7 Innovations. So I'd love you to make a prediction from like an anthropological lens, how creators will create and how consumers will consume. The canary in the coal mine for me was probably TBPN and OpenAI acquiring them for 100 million or whatever. That their 3-hour daily stream got 7,000 views, but the clips got millions. And we're seeing that great clipping happening. But at the same time, what we're seeing with our clients, with influencers, is that long form content, especially like transcripts on YouTube's, are the #1 most cited thing in AI first search engines, which also are hitting critical mass. So we're moving more towards micro influencers because it's a greater citation rate. But do you predict it's going to fall more towards the clipping or more towards longer form, authentic, raw content that actually has greater brand impact in the long run?
What a great question. Definitely the latter. I mean, this isn't my world, technology and agentic. We're obsessed with it, but I don't spend every single day thinking and obsessing about it myself. I'm scaling a media company that has a human IP at its heart. But what I think I have noted in this room is that we will become obsessed with the human process. The human process is what is going to matter to us more than ever. And watching a human go through a process is going to be something we really care about. And I think the messy middle with creators, that long form opportunity to kind of show the messy middle of what this process is to be a human in business, in life, in media, in reality is going to be something we really care about. And I think about the long form as in the short form as almost like the appetizer and the full meal. Like a lot of people will say, hey, I love your show. I watch it on TikTok. And I'm like, that's cool. I love that. If you want to watch it there, please go ahead. We have a long form. You can go and find us there. But if it's enough to make you come and commune with our brand and to find community, that is amazing. So I think we're going to become obsessed with the human process and the messy middle.
Yeah. Never hurts to be everywhere, though, too. Let's go right here, please.
Hi, my name is Laura Petrocelli. I'm the co-founder of an advertising agency, and I've got a question for you, Georgie. You mentioned 50% of your revenue came from brands. And as someone who's on the other side of kind of helping brands build those briefs to partner with creators, what would be your best advice for brands working authentically with creators?
What a great question. Please trust them. Please trust them to understand their audiences better than you do. And let them have the creative freedom to storytell about your brand. I mean, we give every creator we work with the sign off to decide whether they want to work with your brand or not. And if they've decided, they will already have an authentic connection to it. And they will have a belief that that brand will be of service to their audience. So they will storytell about that. So I would just say, please trust them to do the best work that they can. They are absolute experts in their field, and we should let them go and do it. And ads are the content now. I don't know if anyone saw the Jennifer Aniston piece that went live this morning with Selena. It was just so great. And it's an ad, and I was gripped from minute one to the very end. And like, that's a great piece of content, whether it's a brand paid asset or otherwise. So yeah, just please trust them. I'm sure you might have some things to say about that as well.
Completely agree.
And Warren, I just want to go back too, because you brought it
Yeah.
up first, the clipping economy, and I think Mike, you said the clipping. I hadn't heard that before, but I think we know what we're talking about.
Clipping's
Like what is the economy around that, and what advice do you have for creators when you produce something good and long, and they go someone clips 30 seconds of it and runs away with it?
Yeah, I mean the economics around it for a creator are massive, but we're actually again, we'll see where we go, but I'm so focused on people tuning in long form with it. Obviously, we deploy clips from our content, but not at the scale where we're clipping 1,000, 2,000. But you mentioned OpenAI and TBPN. I think there's areas to then buy into that trust layer. They spent a reported $200 million plus on something that was not only distribution but trust. And clipping is more top of funnel. There's Andreessen Horowitz building new media within. You see Tubi going land grabbing, and we heard yesterday on creator content. But I think, and I know that those 7,000 views represent an extremely targeted number of people who then you can build products around. TBPN guys have said they're not going to. I think otherwise, but there's a real interest in, from my lens, to reach the right people versus make content for everyone. So I think the clipping doesn't work for us. It will work for someone, maybe with people you work with, or Steven certainly, where you want to reach a mass audience. For us, we're verticalized and only want to reach our end consumer.
We're almost out of time, and I've got one more question. It's an important one. I think we probably all know a young person in high school or somewhere, else like that, who wants to be what they used to call being on TV. That was the thing when I was young. But now, so what piece of advice would you give a sort of creative, energetic young person to go and really kind of take their talent forward? What would they do?
Experiment every single day. Um, Look at the data of your experiments that you're testing on the platforms that you're using. I think it's amazing that young people are kind of saying to me, I want to be a creator, but there's a huge business that goes around creators, and I've committed my life to making sure that journalists made money from their work. I'm now committing the rest of my career to make sure that creators are able to do the same. So if it's not creators or being created, there's a huge industry around these people that need people to commit to that work that we do. So I would say just experiment and find the right people to speak to, and the rest is yours.
Yeah, and I would, for me, I still struggle with that terminology of creator, and very new. Given 2 months, first time been on camera, so I'm not a great person to give advice for. What I would say is we see so many people with creative pursuits and an itch to be creative or create something that's never been out there in the form of art, because of many reasons. You convince yourself internally not to do it. And I talk to students all the time, and they want to go and they have a passion in a certain area, but because the industry doesn't understand it yet, convince themselves otherwise. I would say do it. The money will follow. If you're passionate about it, for us, we started with the meme account 8 years ago. I would say that hasn't been done many times, but it was something I was obsessed with, and obsessed with solving a problem for a group of people and creating opportunity. And so, for me, I had to get in front of a camera to do it and build in public. But just do it. Just go for it, and stop convincing yourself otherwise.
Yeah.
That's inspiring, both of you. In the 30 seconds we have left, one thing I like about Brainstorm Tech is encountering new things, ideas, people. So please give us one person we should check out from sort of your stable of talent you found. Give us one person and why we should check them out.
Maggie Sellers Rim, she has a podcast called Hot Smart Rich, because in case you missed it, you're allowed to be hot, smart, and rich. She's an amazing creator, and her whole ethos and thesis is making unselfish content and redefining the next era of female ambition. So she's one to watch.
I hate agreeing with you too. We talked about. I reached out to her about how much I admire what Maggie's done, but breaking and entering is a show in the world of media that's doing a very similar thing as we are in the live space, and I think doing things differently in an archaic industry. But I would say I have hope for this industry and a lot of young creatives creating really positive impacts. And one of them is Maggie. There's many others, but breaking and entering is a great show. I think it's going to see a good windfall and tailwinds behind a lot of the areas in live.
Thank you so much. Audience, please thank Warren and Georgie for a very inspiring talk.